The people that became known as the Aztec migrated into Central America in the early 13th century AD. In the early 14th century, the migrants built their capital city, Tenochtitlan, on the islands in the middle of Lake Texcoco. To feed their people, the Aztec created artificial islands, called Chinampa, to grow their crops. As Tenochtitlan's population grew, the Aztec built more artificial islands to expand the city. As a result, the Aztec capital became the largest city in Mesoamerica.
The Aztec civilization was one of the most magnificent empires of the pre-Columbian Americas, which ruled the region of central Mexico during the 14th, 15th, and 16th centuries. It was established by the Mexica people in 1428 and continued to command the allegiance of the neighboring city-states until it was conquered by the Spanish conquistador Hernan Cortes. Aztec society had a rich culture and art, and it was influenced by various Mesoamerican civilizations of the past and enriched by them through original contributions over the course of centuries. This discussion about the Aztec civilization can be divided into subtopics, which are culture, technology, astronomy, and economy. The Aztec culture was the culture of the Mexica people who migrated from the north and established their city-state in the region of central Mexico. The Aztecs had a rich culture and religion which bore influence of various classical Mesoamerican civilizations. Aztec culture had a class society with varying rights for people depending on their social status. Their class society is subdivided into four: nobles, commoners, serfs, and slaves. The Aztecs followed a polytheistic religion in which different gods had different powers. Human sacrifice was one of the most important components of the Aztec religion and culture. The Aztecs also had a unique concept of death and the afterlife. The Aztec culture is divided into various components. First, beliefs and behaviors. Second, ethics and morality. Third, human sacrifice. Fourth, gods and religion. And fifth, attitude towards the elderly or about the concept of aging and death. The first component of the Aztec culture is about beliefs and behaviors. Their beliefs and behaviors had rich mythology and a polytheistic religion with many gods having specific functions. Aztecs believed that the world was created by the major Aztec gods, Tezcatlipoca, Nahual, Ehecatl, and Quetzalcoatl. The Aztec belief system was rich in rituals, and religious ceremonies were held at the end of each 20-day Aztec month. One of the most important aspects of Aztec belief system was human sacrifice, which was performed during each religious ceremony. Prisoners of war, and sometimes even children, were used in these sacrifices. The second component of Aztec culture is ethics and morality. Their ethics and morality reflected a deep reverence for nature and stressed upon a life of balance and purity. This basic principle of balance and purity governed Aztec attitudes, conducts, and management of the everyday state of affairs. Aztecs believed that the wisest course is moderation, and thus one should not go to extremes in his or her conduct. As a famous Aztec proverb goes, the center good is required. The immoral conduct was known as tlacoli, which literally mean damage or harm. According to them, as a result of immoral conduct, the person underwent a loss of balance and thus suffered from physical and psychological diseases. In Aztec morals and ethics, education had a very important role since it was thought to be the source of wisdom for humans. The third component of Aztec culture is human sacrifice. Human sacrifice was of central importance in Aztec culture and religion. Although the exact extent of the practice is debated by the scholars, the practice itself existed in previous Mesoamerican cultures as well as in the Aztec Empire. Aztecs performed human sacrifice during each one of their religious ceremonies, which were held at the end of each 20-day month. According to Aztec religious beliefs, the ongoing sacrifice of humans was what appeased the gods and sustained the universe. Thus, it was considered the highest level of offering to gods. During the ceremony, the person to be sacrificed was taken to the temple at the top of the pyramid and made to lie down on a stone slab. Often he or she would be drugged to reduce the resistance. Priests would then cut out the heart of the victim and throw the rest of the body down to the stairs of the pyramid. The fourth component of Aztec culture is gods and religion. Aztec culture had a polytheistic religion, and like other elements of Aztec culture, there was a deep influence of previous Mesoamerican civilizations in it. The four most important gods in Aztec religion were Tlaloc, who was the god of rain, Huitzilopochtli, who was the patron god of Mexica tribe, Quetzalcoatl was the god of order and civilization, and Tezcatlipoca was the god of destiny and fortune. Other gods include Tonatiuh, the god of sun, Metzil, the god of moon, Mictlantecuhtli, the goddess of the underworld, and others. The fifth component of Aztec culture is attitude towards the elderly or about the concept of aging and death. In Aztec culture, it was believed that a person would go to different realms after death depending on his or her status in this life. For instance, a warrior who died in a battle went to paradise or joined the god Huitzilopochtli in battle. The fate of women who died in childbirth was the same since their status was considered equal to that of warriors. The wise elders of society were called Wewetki, and their advice was highly valued in the matters of the family and city council. Their aging and death were matters of ritual and spiritual importance for the Aztecs. Let's now move forward to Aztec technology. Contrary to popular perceptions, Aztecs, before the advent of the Spaniards, had developed sophisticated technology in various domains. Although their defense and communication technology were not on par with the Spaniards, they had advanced quite well in other areas. Some of the salient accomplishments of Aztec technology include independent development of mathematics, development of a specialized Aztec calendar, invention of the canoe, and various helpful forms of medicine. Due to the absence of iron and bronze, their defense technology was not as advanced as the Spanish conquistadors. The Aztec technology can be divided into components, which are: first, weapons and weaponry; second, roads and transportation; third, inventions, science and education; fourth, building and structures; fifth, tools and equipment, chinampa system; sixth, calendars and charts; seventh, health and well-being; and lastly, eighth, farming and agriculture. The first component of Aztec technology is weapons and weaponry. Aztec technology used for making weapons mainly relied on the use of stone and copper. This was because Aztecs did not have access to iron and bronze. Before the use of copper for making weapons, they mainly relied on obsidian and chert. In other areas, Aztec technology for weapons was quite sophisticated. For instance, they made drills which were made of reed or bone. One of the innovative weapons used by the Aztecs was called macaquilt, which was a wooden club having sharp pieces of volcanic glass. It was used to disable an enemy soldier without killing him. The second component of Aztec technology is roads and transportation. Aztecs faced two crucial disadvantages in terms of Aztec technology for transportation, and these are the absence of wheels and horses. On the land, traveling by foot was the most common way of transportation, which naturally was very slow. Due to this reason, the Aztecs did not construct any roads. However, Aztecs has developed special boats called canoes, which made transportation through streams and rivers easier. This mode of transportation was thus extensively used throughout the Aztec Empire. They dug many canals for the transportation of canoes. The third component of Aztec technology is inventions, science, and education. Aztecs made several important advancements in the domain of education and science. They were among the first societies in the world to make education compulsory for all children. This education also included basic military training for all male students. In the field of science, they made advancements in mathematics, medicine, and astronomy. Steam baths and a variety of herbs were used as medicine. In mathematics, they had their own number system, which used 20 as its base. Among various other purposes, this numbering system was used for calculating taxes. The fourth component of Aztec technology is building and structures. One of the most remarkable achievements of Aztec technology was in the domain of architecture and building of various structures. Some of these enduring feats include the Chinampa system, stone carving, and the remarkable step pyramids. Proper care was taken about proportions and structure of these pyramids, which served as the temples. Another example of Aztec technology is in the domain of architecture was the city of Tenochtitlan, which was divided into 4 parts, each having its own architectural value. The Aztecs also built 2 large aqueducts, which fulfilled the need of fresh water for bathing in the city of Tenochtitlan. The fifth component of Aztec technology is tools and equipment, Chinampa system. Aztecs made a variety of weapons and tools, even though they did not have access to iron or copper. Instead, they made use of andesite, which was a form of volcanic rock other than obsidian, and later on, bronze. Obsidian was a strong and brittle volcanic glass, and had central importance in Aztec technology for tools and weapons. Various kinds of tools and instruments made using these materials, including the digging stick called yukli, fire kindling sticks, copper axes, a wooden club containing sharp pieces of obsidian called makaquilt, and others. The sixth component of Aztec technology is calendars and charts. In the development of calendars, Aztec technology was once again at its finest. The Aztecs made use of 2 calendars, one of which was exclusively reserved for tracking of religious ceremonies and festivals. This calendar was called Tunal Puali, or day count, and had 260 days. The other calendar was used for tracking of time and was called Shufuali, or solar year. This one had 365 days, having 18 months and 20 days each. Both calendars coincided each after 52 years. The seventh component of Aztec technology is health and well-being. In the domain of medicine and healthcare, the Aztec technology was no less impressive for their own time. To prevent muscle spasms and relax the muscles, they invented a special kind of antispasmodic medicine using various herbs, which was very effective. In particular, the passion flower was used for this purpose. It also helped for insomnia, epilepsy, and high blood pressure. Aztecs also extensively used steam baths and believed that sweating made the poisons leave the body of the sick person. The eighth component of Aztec technology is farming and agriculture. Very innovative Aztec technology was used for farming and agriculture. The most important aspect of Aztec technology for agriculture was a farming method called Chinampa, in which the land was divided into rectangular areas and farmed through canals. This was an artificial island built on the swampy ground. Various metal tools and instruments were also used in agriculture and farming. This included a wooden digging stick with metal end known as yukli.
Now let's talk about the Aztec astronomy. Aztec astronomy has always been part of the Aztec culture. The stars, the planet, and the movements of the heavenly body in the universe was a great part of the tradition of the Aztec people, and it had a lot to do with their everyday movements and the decisions that they made on a daily basis. Among the gods was Black Tezcatlipoca, who ruled the night from his abode in the north. With its will, the Big Dipper, he presided over cosmic ball court Gemini, where gods play a game to set fate of humankind. He led the fire stick Orion belts that brought warmth to the heart. At the end of every 52-year calendrical cycle, Black Tezcatlipoca timed the rattlesnake-tailed the Pleiades so that it passed overhead at the midnight, a guarantee that the world would not come to the end but the humanity would granted another epoch of life. The priest in Tenochtitlan, the Aztec capital, climbed to the top of their sky watcher temple on the hill of the star to witness this auspicious sign. The Aztec lived their sky knowing that everything that happened on the earth was outcome of destiny, and they wrote it all down in their books. Now let's talk about the Aztec astronomy beliefs. The Aztec people carefully tracked the movements of celestial bodies such as the sun, moon, stars, and planets. Much like all ancient Mesoamerican people, most of the observation and calculation that were made were done by nobles and priests. This can be seen through the Codex Mendoza, in which priest is depicted observing the stars in order to keep track of the schedule for nightly rituals. It was even a theological idea that a ritual sacrifice of blood was needed in order to keep the sun in its course and the earth bountiful. Aztec astronomers had their own reason for sky watching. The Aztecs saw in the heaven of sustainer of life the gods they sought to repay with the blood of sacrifice, for bringing favorable rains, for keeping earth from quaking, for storing them in a bottle. Aztec also has an astronomy discoveries. Aside from tracking of celestial bodies for building alignment purposes, the Aztec utilized astronomy in other ways. The celestial cycles allowed the Aztec to track the length of the solar year, lunar month, and the revolution of Venus, found to be 584 days. The discoveries they made enabled for the calibration of calendar and signaling of a special ceremonial day. For example, the New Year ceremony was a ceremony that was held to celebrate the start of the new 52-year calendar round, and it was signaled by the passage of constellation Pleiades across the zenith of midnight sky. The astronomical observation made by the Aztecs also included the prediction of solar and lunar eclipses, and the observation of comets and shooting stars. This observation and attention the Aztec people paid to astronomy were mostly done for devotion and ritual, as the celestial heavenly body were thought to have a religious significance.
Moving on to Aztec economy, the Aztec economy was sustained through three main pillars: agriculture, trade, and tribute. Agriculture was needed to fulfill the food needs of the population, while surplus produce could be used to trade for other goods. Given the swampy ground of the Aztec capital, special farming method called chinampa was used to farm the lake bed. Tribute contributed considerably to the wealth of Aztec capital, and constant wars were fought to ensure its steady supply. Finally, traveling merchants traded between different parts of the empire and sold the surplus goods of one place to the other. These traveling merchants also served as a source of communication between different regions of the Aztec Empire. Now, we will be discussing about agriculture, which is one of the three main pillars of Aztec economy. Agriculture was one of the most sources of sustenance for the Aztec economy. Since the capital city was founded on a swampy ground, Aztecs used a special method of farming called chinampa. In this method, small rectangular areas of land were used to grow crops on the shallow lake beds of the Mexican Valley. Aztecs grew a variety of crops, most important of which was maize, squash, and beans. These three crops were known as the Three Sisters and planted together since they kept the nutrients in the soil. Since agriculture was crucial to the Aztec economy, a lot of young people adopted agriculture as a profession. Crops were also used to trade for other products such as animal skins or woodwork. We will now move on to the second main pillar of the Aztec economy, which is trade. Extensive trading took place between different parts of the Aztec Empire, and a variety of goods were transported from one city-state to another. The traveling merchants used canoes to transport their goods along streams and rivers. Important goods that were traded at the marketplace included cloth, garden produce, knives and tools, leather and flowers, animal skins, precious metals, pottery, and others. Some traders traded exclusively for the nobility and procured precious metals and other goods for them. Other than these central marketplaces, there were also smaller markets which specialized in various kinds of goods. For instance, one small marketplace could sell slaves, another one would sell only precious metals, and so on. The last of the three main pillars of the Aztec economy is tribute. The wealth of Aztec Empire was sustained through tribute and trade other than its agriculture. Tribute was very important for Aztec economy, and thus the empire constantly waged battles against the neighboring city-states in order to ensure a steady supply of tribute and war captives. Trade between different parts of the empire was also central for the wealth of Aztec Empire. The capital city of Tenochtitlan was considerably wealthier than the other city-states since it not only indulged in extensive trading but also collected tribute from all the subjugated city-states.